7 Days to Die is less than a week away, and it comes out on PC on the experimental branch on Steam on the 24th of June, and quite frankly, it doesn't have that much in it. But there is one major change coming that I think is worth talking about: the armor rework. This is one of the most controversial changes of recent memory in 7 Days to Die, right up there with what if we made water fucking annoying and stupid, and what if we made crafting annoying and stupid. But does the armor rework live up to the Fun Pimp's major brainwave decisions being annoying and stupid? Let's take a look. So, for those who are just stumbling on 1.0 news and don't even know what's going on, the old clothing and armor system is gone. Previously we had 9 clothing and armor slots, which could be filled with dozens of clothing items, or one of 6 pieces of armor: padded, leather, military, scrap, iron, and steel. Those 9 slots have been massively crunched down into just 4: the head, the hands, the feet, and the body. All the old armor and clothing is gone, and they have been replaced with 16 brand new armor sets split across 3 armor classes: light, medium, and heavy. The light armors are Primitive, Lumberjack, Preacher, Rogue, Athletic, and Enforcer. The medium armors are Farmer, Biker, Scavenger, Ranger, Commando, and Assassin. The heavy armors are Miner, Nomad, Nerd, and Raider. So that makes for 64 individual armor items, because there are 4 items for each set and there are 16 sets. You could also view it as 16 per slot. All the armor items in the game will now have a unique effect to improve your character's ability at something. For example, some armor items we've seen improve your abilities to do sneak damage, or your sneaking effectiveness, or melee damage. Wearing all 4 items of a particular set will give you a unique 5th effect. Now, we could sit here and angrily debate whether or not unique, essentially magical effects fits in the game thematically. I personally think this is a huge step away from the survival roots of the game, and it puts another point in the looter shooter RPG tab, and I'd imagine most people would probably agree with that assessment. I think it's anti-survival to have what are functionally Skyrim enchantments and Fallout legendary effects on every piece of armor in the game. But regardless, the change is coming to the game. Tastes like shit, but it's what's happening, so we can either whine about it or just accept that it's going to at least be tested in the game and analyse the effects they'll have without worrying about the label we attach in our heads to the game. But do note, I do agree with all the angry nerds on this topic. Anyway, weird tangent aside, what does this mean for the game? Well, there are upsides and downsides to my mind. Let's start with the pros. These effects do represent a further level of specialization and progression for your character other than just perks. In a game where item progression is going to be slowed massively thanks to the upcoming trader progression nerf, and perks and rare medical items are the only way to improve your character's stats meaningfully, since we don't have any skills to improve to gain small increases in effectiveness in various things, having another item we can use that can let us do more damage, mine more ores, or get better trade discounts without necessarily having to level up does represent a good change to the game, I think. For example, say right now you're not mining enough ores when you're mining. You've neglected Miner 69er and you don't have the stamina to use any good pickaxes. And even if you did use one, the loot is going to be so hamstrung that getting a good steel pick or an auger may be 20 levels away. You've got some rock busters and coffee, but you just can't do anything to mine any more materials until you get enough XP to get another level. Well, now you could go hunting for the mining armor to improve your ability to mine without being stuck behind your level or the overall item progression. Now you might be saying that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and you're absolutely right, it is, but I'm trying to be positive. Obviously this effect could have been achieved about 200 other ways that weren't dumb. For example, you could just put a skill system in the game that the game already had years ago that would allow you to mine, and then you would improve at mining, and then there you go, you would be able to improve without necessarily getting a full level to do it. But nonetheless, the armor rework does partially achieve that, which is a positive thing. I think a much more impactful improvement the armor rework does actually make is that it makes armor a much more desirable item to find. Previously, you would essentially just pick up spare pieces to put mods on it, and sell it at the trader for an inflated amount, which, let's be honest, probably isn't intentional because the value was always worth way more than it realistically should be. But now, every time you open a clothing or armor container or an end of dungeon loot that has armor in it, there's going to be a much bigger chance of getting an item that's actually useful to you. For example, you might be a heavy armored character and you like to wear the raider armor. Well, if you were in all level 6 steel armor now, that was it. You just stopped caring about armor. You would pick it up to sell it. Now, you might be the full level 6 raider armor and still be looking for various pieces of armor. You might open a container and find a mining gauntlet that gives you a better effect for when you go mining later. Now, if we assume that absolutely all of the 64 armor effects are actually unique, and that all of them are actually useful to players, that would mean there are 64 times 6 individual armor items you could find which could be of use to you, assuming you always found a level 1 before you found a level 2, before you found a level 3, etc. Which is 384 potential upgrades to your wardrobe over the entire playthrough, assuming you wanted them all and that you always got a level 1 before getting a level 2. Now obviously that isn't the reality, and it would never go that perfectly, but that is the maximum potential there. My point is, you'll be putting a much bigger emphasis on finding new armors in 7 Days to Die, because one character might need several kinds of armor for different parts of their survival experience, from harvesting to farming, mining, cutting trees, trading and fighting. I imagine everyone is going to be hunting at least 5 sets of armor now, versus just waiting for level 6 military or level 6 steel, or potentially level 6 padded if you were going for a super niche build. This is a major improvement to the feature of wearable items, because anything that makes a mechanic much more important and makes players engage with it more is generally a good thing for a game, assuming it's done in a non-stupid way. Another improvement with the change is the multiplayer effects of it. Now, instead of everyone basically wearing BDUs in either steel or military armor with whatever jacket they like, there are going to be real differences in how characters look and play in multiplayer thanks to everyone tailoring their specific combination of sets, which is partially discouraged by the adding of the completion bonus. The completion bonus is a 5th effect every armor set you get for wearing the full set, so you may be much more likely to see people going for full sets for their bonus, but nonetheless there's still 16 armor sets you could potentially see someone running around in multiplayer, as well as people min-maxing for some niche playstyle who's wearing 4 random ugly pieces of armor. It does really rely on there not being an obvious 100% best armor set that absolutely stomps the rest that everybody ends up wearing. But more importantly for multiplayer is the trade potential. Your friend might have an assassin glove that you want, and you might have enforcer glasses that they want. Behold, trading, interaction, cooperation. This is good for a game in multiplayer. Or maybe you'll just kill your friend for it, which is also good because it's still an interaction. The final positive thing I have to say is about the introduction of the medium armor, which I think is great. Now for the cons. First of all, it's a small thing, but a lot of people don't like micromanaging their armor like this, and this will add a lot of fiddling with inventories, reading stats, and since you don't know the completion bonus of armor until you wear it, it's going to be a lot of putting on armors and taking them off. This is quite fiddly, and for a lot of people that is not really fun. A lot of people really hate the inventories and menus in this game. There are very popular mods whose sole purpose is to remove as much inventory management from the game as possible. Like wireless crafting, for example. It's a minor flaw, but one that should be mentioned because this is going to be very tiring for that one particular type of player. Another con is that the Fun Pimps have cut corners in their design once again, and you can't currently dye armor. Now, this not only reduces the customization massively, but it also puts much less of a value on dye, because now it's just for your vehicle and weapons. We went from hunting at least 9 dyes for your armor to dye being completely reduced in usefulness. Again, it's a minor flaw, but it is one that I think is of note. Now, the huge flaw in the armor system that I don't think I've seen anybody talking about is the absolute skull fucking of the cloth economy again. If you didn't know, they recently made cloth a much more scarce item by essentially multiplying the cloth cost of most items by 5 to 10 times. One of the best ways to get cloth was scrapping clothes. What do we do now? Do we scrap those valuable armor items? Are they going to be that common that we can sustain ourselves by scrapping scavenger armor, for example? It seems like the opposite of what the devs would want. Now, this flaw could be alleviated if they pull the railroad spike out of their brains and just rebalance cloth costs of items back to what they used to be, so that gathering cloth through cotton plants and clothing containers is perfectly viable for large-scale crafting. That is assuming a lot from a developer who, to be kind, you should always have very low expectations for. Still, this effect could be fixed already, so we can't really hold it against it until we have it in hand and we can test it. The last negative thing, and probably the most important thing, is a massive loss in customizability. Prove this mathematically, I spawned in all the obtainable clothing options in 7 Days to Die currently, and there was 90 items. As a reminder, there are now only 64, so right off the bat we've lost about a third of the clothing options and over half of the clothing slots. So objectively, mathematically, scientifically, there is less customization options in 1.0, especially since right now at least, you can't dye the armor. Now this may be a problem for you, this might not be, but I've seen a lot of talk about a reduction in customization being a big problem for a lot of people, and I wanted to quantify it to make sure it's true. And yes, you simply have a lot less options for how your character can look now. Now at the end of this video, you're probably expecting me to make a major sensational YouTuber comment like, and overall the armor rework is amazing and you should feel bad if you hate it, or the armor rework is dog shit and it killed my pet rabbit and gave me diabetes. Obviously neither of those is true, it's not as simple as that. Still reserve my judgment on whether or not the change is stupid and annoying like the magazines and the water rework until I've played around with it extensively. But I think the major takeaways you should take from this video are that the armor rework massively reduces customization while increasing the amount of important gameplay choices and placing a bigger emphasis on armor accumulation overall for most players, which I would say is mostly positive. But the bigger picture of what this all means for the game as a survival game, for me personally, I don't like it. So the final verdict, before we really get it to test it, is that there are a lot of positive things about it, but I don't like it. Things can be good, and you cannot like the things. Things can be bad, and you can like the things. These are actually opinions that you're allowed to have. Did you know that? You don't hear them much. Anyway, subscribe for more 1.0 content when it comes out. Like the video if you too hear voices that tell you to write insane things on people's cars with keys. And thank you to my members and patrons for helping make this video possible, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.